So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Built Heritage Committee meeting of March 6th, 2023. I'd like to call the members to order. This hybrid meeting is being facilitated through Zoom and is being held on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the original custodians of the unceded land in which the city of Ottawa is located. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank staff, along with the Heritage community, for the incredible efforts in making last month's Heritage Day and Ottawa Heritage Awards a tremendous success. Heritage Day was celebrated with an in-person event on February 21st. This was the first time that the City and Capital Heritage Connection gathered since 2020, and we are all thrilled that the event returned to City Hall. Heritage Day celebrations and activities raise awareness and encourage the preservation and promotion of regionally significant historic, architectural, natural, and scenic heritage. This year's theme was Recovering and Connecting Ottawa's Heritage Stronger Together, where we received a unique and unprecedented event where we recognized the unique and unprecedented events of the last few years, while also honoring the role that unity plays in the recognition, protection, and celebration of our heritage. The event showcased many local cultural organizations who played a key role in keeping us connected in recent times. Also, as part of Heritage Week, the City of Ottawa recognized outstanding contributions to heritage conservation with the 2023 Ottawa Heritage Awards. 11 projects in various categories were recognized on February 22nd at the Bytown Cinema. The selected projects demonstrate a commitment not only to architectural heritage, but also to the preservation of the heritage of our entire city. The impact of these projects will be felt for years to come. Projects completed between January 2019 and December 2020 were eligible for the awards, and the winners were selected by an external jury with experience and expertise in heritage conservation. I'd like to thank staff, the award winners and nominees, and all the participant exhibitors who made Heritage Week a success. I'd also like to congratulate Heritage Ottawa, who was selected to receive the Mayor's Heritage Day proclamation in recognition of its steadfast commitment to advocacy efforts in keeping the heritage community connected and informed to better protect Ottawa's heritage despite the pandemic. In terms of our meeting today, members are reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak and provide written submissions to this committee, residents may still make written submissions to council. All reports considered today will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on March 22nd, 2023. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. I have received regrets from member Conforti. Could the committee coordinator please call the roll? A reminder to members to unmute themselves when they're called.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Member Podolsky.
Oh, present.
Member Quinn.
Present.
Councillor Chaucer.
Present.
Member Conforti. Councillor Leeper.
Good morning.
Member Halsall. Present. Vice Chair Pound.
Ici.
Chair King.
Here. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, are the minutes of Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 confirmed? Confirmed, thank you. Our first item is the designation of the Crabtree House, 559 Langs Road under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I understand that Member Podolsky has an amending motion concerning the statement of cultural heritage value.
Yes, I do, Chair. Would you like me to read it into the record now?
Absolutely. I think it's coming up on screen right now.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here in person in the council chamber. Whereas the City of Ottawa has not yet undertaken a comprehensive inventory and evaluation of Ottawa's mid-century modern architecture, and whereas the classification of buildings constructed in the mid-century modern period cannot be classed as unique or excellent examples until a comprehensive inventory of their contemporaries has been systematically completed, and whereas in the interim, the use of the word representative should be used as permitted in the Ontario Regulation 0906. Therefore, be it resolved that the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value on this file, listed as document 5 in this report, be amended as follows. The Crabtree House has design value as an excellent example of modernist residential architecture in Ottawa, be replaced with the Crabtree House has design value as a representative example of modernist residential architecture in Ottawa. That's the content of my amendment.
Thank you so much. And we also thank staff for working with Member Podolsky on the amending motion. Can staff now please provide an overview of this report?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I want to introduce Dawn Chan, who's our Young Canada Works Building Careers and Heritage intern this year. And so this is Dawn's project she's been working on for the last several months with the property owners, and is the culmination of some of her work with us as a heritage planning intern. So I'll pass it over to Dawn.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Dawn Chan, and today I have prepared a brief presentation on staff's recommendation to issue a notice of intention to designate the Crabtree House at 559 Langs Road under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. The Crabtree House is located on Viscount Alexander Park neighborhood on the east side of Langs Road, south of the Rock Quarry, and across the street from the Hôpital Montfort. The property is located on the Rideau Rockcliffe ward in the city of Ottawa. Next slide, please. Provincial policy statement, the Ontario Heritage Act, and the city's official plan provide direction related to the designation of properties in Ottawa. The property was listed on the Heritage Register in 2019 as part of the citywide inventory project. Ontario Regulation 906 establishes the criteria used to determine if a property is of cultural heritage value or interest. Changes to the Ontario Heritage Act through Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, allow for a property to be designated under the Ontario Heritage Act if it meets 2 or more of the 9 criteria set out in the regulation. Staff's evaluation of this property concludes that it meets 7 of the 9 of the criteria, of which will be discussed shortly. Further changes to the Ontario Heritage Act through Bill 23, however, would result in the property's removal from the register if council does not issue a notice of intention to designate the property by December 31st, 2024. It would also not be able to relist the property for 5 years after this date. Next slide, please. The Crabtree House's design value as an excellent example of the modernist residential architecture within Ottawa. It demonstrates architectural features that are characteristic of this style, including overhanging eaves, a flat roof, cantilevered elements, a simple front entrance, multiple cladding material, large floor-to-ceiling windows, limited ornamentation, and an integrated carport. It also displays a high degree of craftsmanship and artistic merit through its unique architectural details, such as its brise-soleil, geometric built forms, contrasting cladding material, and the careful integration of the property into its unaltered landscape. The architectural expression demonstrates common modernist themes, including minimalism and harmony with nature. Next slide, please. The Crabtree House also has historical value for its association with the Fairhaven Cooperative. Created in 1947 by a small group of employees at the National Research Council, the cooperative established a set of regulations to help shape the architecture of the neighborhood to ensure it aligned with modernist ideals. The cooperative was the first of its kind in Canada. The property is also directly associated with its first owners, Graham and Dorothy Crabtree. Graham Crabtree's work at Crawley Films and the National Film Board included working on pieces of Canadian media that helped to develop Canada's identity as a nation in the mid-20th century. Dorothy Crabtree's work at the National Research Council contributed to the development of the Canada Arm, which stands as one of Canada's most significant contributions in the field of robotics. The Crabtrees also commissioned local architect Matthew Stankiewicz to design the house, and it stands as an excellent example of his work in Ottawa. Stankiewicz was also a well-known modern architect, designing a range of buildings, including other homes, the Uni Center at Carleton University, and a Canadian Pavilion Expo 67. Next slide, please. key exterior elements that contribute to the design of the or physical value of 559 Langs Road as an excellent residential example of the modernist style include overhanging eaves, cantilever balconies, and an upper level living spaces on the west and south facades, minimalist design of the entryways, the two-story brise soleil in a geometric pattern on the west facade, the use of multiple cladding materials, including vertical wood paneling, white stucco, and concretes, the functional design of the incorporated carport on the west facade that accentuates the house's natural integration into the landscape of the property, the partial exposure of the first level that also accentuates the home's integration into the landscape, and the floor-to-ceiling windows that provide a panoramic view of the wooden landscape of the property. Next slide, please. The key interior elements that highlight the Crabtree House as an excellent example of a modernist home include the open space between the atrium and the lofted living space that emphasizes the floor-to-ceiling windows and strengthens the link between the outdoor and indoor spaces, as well as the floor-to-ceiling corkboard wall that was initially created as a place to display art pieces and reference material for Graham Crabtree's work. Next slide, please. And the key contextual elements that highlight the Crabtree House as an excellent example of the mid-century modernist structure and link into its context include the viewscape of the trees that add to the natural aesthetic of the property, the landscape where the house is situated partially below grade, the tree cover obscuring the house from Langs Road and surrounding the driveway to the house, the rocky landscape that abuts the driveway, adding to the natural landscape of the property. Next slide, please. The owners of the property submitted a request to designate the property in September of 2021 and were advised of this report and its recommendations. The ward councillor is also aware of this recommendation associated with the report. Next slide, please. As outlined above, the Crabtree House meets 7 of the 9 criteria outlined in Ontario Regulation 906 for designation under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff recommend that council issue a notice of intention to designate the property. Next slide. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chan, for the excellent professional work that you've exercised on this application. It's very much appreciated. We do have received some correspondence on this item from Heritage Ottawa. We also do have the owner on the line, as well as I don't see Mr. Fleming, but Mr. Fleming had noted that he would only speak if there were objections to the designation. So I'll ask the owner, Ms. Vanderoos, whether she would like to make a comment. And I see Pauline is on the line. Just wanted to see if there's any comment to make.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pauline van der Roest, and I'm the owner of the Crabtree House with my husband, Berry de Bruin, and our son, Jip. And I would like to thank you all very much for considering heritage designations for our home. Don Chan and Avery Marshall put together an excellent report. And I don't think it's necessary for me to repeat all details of the report, but I'm mostly here today to answer any questions you may have. But first, I would like to explain shortly why we were willing to submit this application. The moment we set foot on this property with our real estate agent in 2004, we were immediately struck by the architecture and its use of the natural landscape. After we managed to buy the house from the first owners, we started to learn more about their background and their involvement in the design with the architect, Matthew Stankiewicz. The Crabtrees and Stankiewicz clearly had a shared understanding of modernist architecture and managed to harmoniously blend the natural setting and the built form. Exterior design elements and materials are repeated indoors, such as chimneys, balcony railings, and wood details. A feel of cottage living in the middle of the city. We have felt for many years a heritage designation would be beneficial to the Crabtree home. To my understanding, not many buildings from the international style are yet designated, but they are disappearing rapidly through demolition or drastic renovation. Our home is a clear example of a period, the post-war, that marks a key shift in Ottawa's development. The home is special nowadays, since no alterations to the design and original materials have been made. We love our modernist home, and believe our home matches what the original creators of the Fairhaven Cooperative had envisioned, to pursue the modernist idea of living harmoniously with nature. We are very proud to submit this application and very pleased about the detailed and positive evaluation by Heritage staff. We feel very privileged to be the second owners of the Crabtree home and are happy to contribute to the protection of it. With that, I am available for any questions you might have. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your submission and for your delegation. Are there any questions by the committee? And I see no hands raised, so thank you so much once again for the submission and for your delegation. Does the committee have any questions for staff? Oh, and I see that Member Leeper has a question.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is obviously it seems like a slam dunk with respect to designation. And again, thank you, Don, for the great work that you've done on this. Excellent job. The one question I have is with respect to the contextual attribute that you've identified, that tree cover obscuring the house from Langs Road and surrounding the driveway to the house is a key attribute. It's not difficult to imagine a future homeowner wanting to open up the view of the house from the road. Can you give me some color on why this is being made one of the heritage attributes? Because of course, if a future owner does want to open up the view to the house from the road, they're going to need to seek your department's or even this committee's permission to do so, which seems like I'm not sure why we would make someone jump through that hoop.
Hi, thank you for your question. So the reason that I put the tree cover as one of the contextual attributes is because the idea of the modernist attribute being harmony with nature would imply that the tree cover would kind of add to the harmony with nature aspect. So the house is integrated into nature, so it kind of adds to like the wooded landscape of the property.
Do we know, and it's difficult to put yourself in the mind of the architect, obviously, but do we know if that was a deliberate choice by the architect at the time?
I'm not 100% sure.
I would say no, we don't know that it was a deliberate choice, but it is very much typical of this neighborhood, other modernist neighborhoods of the time period, where you see a lot of sort of blending of indoor and outdoor space, the large expanses of windows looking out onto treed areas. If you look at the Briarcliff Heritage Conservation District, which is very near here, it's one of the main attributes of that district is about trees and nature and the landscape. So I would say it's a fairly typical attribute that we would include for a modernist property. That being said, I think it's general enough that it wouldn't mean that you couldn't cut down a tree without a permit, but it might mean that you can't cut down all the trees.
Okay. Yeah, and it's that sort of compromise that I'd be looking for in the future, because people do have security concerns around you know, the entrance to their property and such, where some people obviously want to completely block it off, but others might want to have that view to the home just for the peace of mind that it's visible from the street. So
yeah, of course. And I mean, I think you know, that's part of the reason we didn't get to, you know, there are 18 trees, protect the 18 trees.
Okay.
So I think it's protecting that sense of nature and that contextual value as opposed to each individual tree itself.
okay. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Member Leeper. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, do any of the members have any comments on the amending motion or the report itself? Member Podolsky.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And I will lead off with a comment on Councillor Leeper's question about the attributes. The reason for, and I'll speak to my amending motion and why it should be adopted. I think that I'm very, very pleased that the owners of this house have voluntarily sought, and that staff has recommended to the Built Heritage Committee and Council the designation of this property. I think that the purpose of my amending motion is that up until now, any designations of mid-century modern architecture have been done ad hoc. There has not been an overall inventory and evaluation of Ottawa's stock of mid-century modern architecture, dating roughly from 1945 to 1980. Other cities have taken this initiative and have done very well in analyzing and evaluating their mid-century modern architecture, but Ottawa is behind. And about a year ago, I sent a memo to the committee, and the committee asked the city staff to put the whole program of evaluating mid-century modern architecture on its work plan for various reasons, which I well understand. This has been postponed, but I think that it's important for the evaluation of buildings like the Crabtree House to be set into a context of understanding the whole movement of modern architecture in Ottawa, and which ones are excellent, which ones don't make the cut and should not be designated, and which ones are representative. This has not been done as a whole, and therefore it makes it difficult to assess the attributes, like the tree cover, as to whether or not that is really significant or not. And hence my motion, which is very minimal, is to have the building representative of modern architecture in Ottawa post-war, rather than an excellent or unique example that's written in the report, because we just don't know yet. And that was the point of the amendment. And I think that perhaps at the end of the meeting, when there are inquiries, Leslie can give us an update on where staff is or has been permitted to be in terms of undertaking the overall assessment of mid-century modern architecture in Ottawa. Thank you.
Appreciate those comments. Are there any other comments from members? Seeing none, is the amending motion carried?
Carried.
Carried. And is the report carried? Carried. Thank you. So this report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on March 22nd. The next item is applications to alter 233 Argyle Street and 330 McLeod Street, properties designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act as part of the Centretown Heritage Conservation District. We do have a motion to defer, and I will ask Vice Chair Plant to read that motion in.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Whereas with respect to report ACS 2023 pre-RHU 006, a request for deferral has come forward in order to align with the timing of the associated zoning bylaw amendment report for Planning and Housing Committee, and whereas the applicant has agreed to an extension of the statutory timeline under the Ontario Heritage Act to align with the timing of the applications. Therefore, be it resolved that with respect to report ACS 2023, Built Heritage Committee approved the deferral of the report indefinitely until the associated zoning bylaw amendment report is scheduled to rise to Planning and Housing Committee as a yet to be determined date. Merci.
Thank you so much. There's no presentation on this item, but my understanding is that the Fotan, who's registered for the applicants, has a representative here. And I don't know if you want to speak to the item. So I see Ms. Warren is here.
Good morning. No, I don't need to speak to the item. We're just available if there was any questions from the committee.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Ms. Warren? And we see none, so thank you. Does the committee have any questions for staff? And I see no questions. And I would assume that there are no other comments as well on this deferral. Yes. So is the report carried? Oh, is the motion carried? Sorry. Carried, thank you. The next item is heritage permits issued through delegated authority. There is no presentation on this item. It's once again a kind of a pro forma listing. So does the committee have any questions for staff? Seeing none, do any of the members have any comments on this item? And I see no hands raised. So is the report carried? Carried, thank you. So this report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on March 22nd. The next item is a status update on the Built Heritage Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending February 17th, 2023. There are no presentations on this item. Does the committee have any questions or comments on this item? And I see that Member Podolsky has raised his hand.
Sorry. There we go. Perhaps, Leslie, you could respond to the question that I had about the status of the work program and the position of the inventory of mid-century modern on your work list. Where is it?
Is that on this? I can, but is that on this item?
I am not certain, but I'm happy if staff takes leeway to answer the question.
As Member Podolsky said, we do have a citywide modernist inventory on our work plan. As you have all been hearing from me the last couple of months as a broken record, Bill 23 has thrown a wrench into everything. So given that we have a statutory timeline for dealing with the properties currently listed on the register, those have to come first. So our plan right now is that as we go through all of the register properties, we're doing it geographically at the moment, so ward by ward based on demolition permit data. We will, at the end of that, go back and look at some different typologies. So we need to look at, for instance, churches. We need to look at modernist buildings. We need to look at schools. So we will sort of do that as a double check. I think the other aspect of the modernist inventory that sort of complicates things and makes it a bigger project is that many of the modernist buildings are owned by the federal government. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't consider them. We need to consider them, but it's a whole different beast. So I cannot give a timeline right now based on our current resources and the new resources that we're getting for Bill 23. We'll hopefully be able to cope with those implications in the first couple of years, but I expect that a full citywide modernist inventory will be after that. So.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions on this item? Seeing none, is the report received? Received, thank you. So there are no in-camera items. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, are there any inquiries? And we did not receive any inquiries. Is there any other business? Seeing none, on adjournment, is the motion carried? Thank you. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th.